On Tuesday, October 17, the Ahli hospital in Gaza City was hit by a rocket. Israel denied any responsibility, saying Hamas had fired a barrage of rockets at the hospital and one of these rockets misfired. An Al Jazeera live report showed a rocket rising from the horizon and exploding in the sky. Seconds later, the hospital explodes. The Israeli military showed a screenshot of the explosion as evidence of its account, adding that it was all on Al Jazeera. At the same time, the Israeli television channel N12 published the video of a live cam in Netivot to corroborate the military's portrayal.
Stamp on this, it's 6:59, and this is when it happens. We can press play on the tape, and you can see very clearly. Again, this is Channel 12's camera. You can see the rockets. This is the left red stamp fired.
Inscribed arrows tell the viewer where to look. The rest is explained in the commentary.
And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you. But there's a lot of people out there not sure. So we've got to overcome a lot of things.
This was followed by an analysis by the London-based OSINT experts from forensic architecture, who used videos and satellite images to analyze the crater and identify an angle of impact of the rocket. While the Israeli military pointed at the launch point of the Hamas rockets, forensic architecture's analysis showed exactly the direction of the exploded rocket. The case could now be shelved if it weren't for numerous indications that everything that has been claimed so far is simply false. This Al Jazeera video zooms in on the burning hospital at the end. The south-facing solar roofs are clearly visible. But that means that the camera is facing east and the rocket that exploded in the sky was an Israeli missile. The N12 live cam video is cut off 25 seconds before the explosion in the hospital for unknown reasons, yet it shows a rocket launch and an explosion-marked hospital at the same time. So the explosion can't possibly be the explosion that devastated the hospital. But is this the Hamas rocket that's about to be launched? Strangely enough, she gets out of the barrage of Hamas rockets slightly offset and also appears much closer. Is there perhaps a reason that the video was cut off at this point? From the synchronization with other videos, it is clear without a doubt that the N12 video shows the same Israeli missile that explodes in the Al Jazeera video. Is it possible that debris from a launched rocket rained down on the hospital and exploded there again? Another live cam from Ashdod in the north shows the explosion in the sky far east of the hospital. The debris should therefore have come from the east, not from the southwest, just like the crater analysis by forensic architecture suggests. However, this crater analysis is based on a satellite image showing the crater at a time when countless passers-by had spread so much concrete dust that most of the traces of fragmentation were no longer visible. Bellingcat's video mapping also only shows one side of the crater. Is there an intention in this? A word about the meaning of these fragmentation traces. When a missile's fragmentation warhead explodes, the fragments spread out like a ring around the missile. Where the fragments meet a surface, they leave distinctive traces that depict exactly this ring. That is, from the traces of the fragments, the position at the moment of the explosion and thus the direction of flight can be deduced. So what traces of fragmentation do we really see in the courtyard of the hospital? Early photos prove that the fragments in the semicircle around the crater tore up the stones of the pavement. So the rocket was tilted to that side. The same is shown in the video used by Bellingcat. That is, the analysis of forensic architecture is wrong and the rocket came from the west. This direction is confirmed by the sloping impacts over the side of the church, as well as by a few high impacts into houses opposite. The traces of fragmentation running in a semicircle behind the rocket, i.e. on the side to which the rocket was tilted, indicate a launch point just south of the Gaza City port. You could say the rocket came from behind Al Jazeera over Al Jazeera's right shoulder. And it came at a steep downward angle. The angle would come as little surprise for a ballistic missile at the end of its maximum range, but there is no room for maximum range in Gaza. 3 kilometers from the hospital to the west is the sea. There is certainly no Hamas rocket to be expected. Let's watch the truncated video of N12 again, but with a view to the west. What are these lights in the sky? Al Jazeera had briefly dismissed it as the work of Iron Dome.
That video clearly shows how the Iron Dome intercepted these rockets.
Interestingly, N12 had initially made a mistake on the release and showed a few seconds later an hour later. The same lights in the sky, explosions on the ground, even though the Hamas rockets are flying in the other direction. Al Jazeera should know that this cannot be Iron Dome, because the Iron Dome missiles would have to rise in the east, where the Al Jazeera camera is looking. Watch these lights in the synchronized video from 3 directions. The blue-framed lights travel east almost all the way over the hospital, then the notice as they move east, pause, then 2 explosions, the second is the hospital, and the lights return to the west. One clue could be a video taken from the steps of Al-Quds Hospital, just a few meters away. This is a combat helicopter that fires so-called flares to deflect heat-seeking anti-aircraft missiles. Were such helicopters in the right position? And can the other events be excluded as sources? To be sure, we can use all 3 viewing directions to locally triangulate all these events in these few seconds. It quickly becomes clear that the exploded rocket launched in Israel and exploded over Israel. From there, nothing could fall on the hospital. It also becomes clear that the Israeli military was telling the truth about the trajectory of Hamas rockets as shown yellow in the model. The last barrage actually shot right over the hospital. However, that barrage ended 25 seconds before the Ahli explosion and had long since passed the hospital according to the videos. In addition, the impact would have yielded a completely different pattern. Of all possible sources, only the light blue-framed attack helicopter comes into question. The flight path on which the helicopter was traveling at the time in question is marked by the light blue balls in the model. Roughly estimated, these helicopters were at an altitude of 6,000 meters. And the light blue one was in exactly the right position. He fired and flew back out to sea. As the falsely published N12 video proves, these helicopters were still flying attacks according to the same scheme an hour later, and they continued to do so in the following days, as the Al-Quds hospital video proves. From the perspective of the helicopters, the launch spot of the Hamas rockets must have been on full display. And it was no further away than the hospital. Then why did the helicopter specifically attack the hospital but not the launch spot of these rockets?